In the K-drama industry, everything is fleeting. The fame goes, the roles dry up, the fandom moves to somebody newer. Even the relationships don't last. And somehow, in the middle of all that, these people found each other. Here are 10 of the most famous friendships in the K-drama industry and how they met. One of these even survived a deadly car crash together, and they've stayed best friends ever since. Let's begin with two men who have been friends for 28 years and still refuse to drop the formalities. Lee Jung-jae and Jung Woo-sung have been best friends for 28 years. They've acted together, founded a company together, even lived next door to each other. Yet, after all that time, they still speak to each other in honorifics. Not occasionally, but in every single conversation. To most people, that sounds strange. To them, it's the reason the friendship has lasted. Jung Woo-sung was once asked why they never dropped the formalities, and his answer explained everything. They rarely argue, he said, because speaking in honorifics makes it much harder to say something hurtful in the heat of the moment. In other words, they gave their friendship a rule, one designed to keep it from ever falling apart. They met in 1998 while filming City of the Rising Sun, playing a boxer and a swindler whose unlikely friendship drives the story. Once filming ended, the friendship didn't. 18 years later, they did something most people would tell you never to do. They went into business together, founding artist company with both of them as major shareholders. Business has ended countless friendships. Theirs only grew stronger. Lee Jung-jae has even said they've never had a real fight in more than 20 years. Not a major one, and not even a minor one. When he appeared on U-Quiz on the Block and was asked what they usually talk about, his answer was work and movies, which is either the least interesting answer imaginable or exactly why they've lasted this long. In another interview, Lee Jung-jae described Jung Woo-sung not as his friend, but as family. It wasn't a dramatic declaration. He said it so casually that it sounded like the most natural thing in the world. In 2022, they walked the Cannes red carpet together for Hunt, Lee Jung-jae's directorial debut, in which they also starred. Looking back on that moment, Jung Woo-sung said his greatest joy was standing there beside his best friend. 28 years later, they're still business partners, still best friends, and still calling each other with the same respect they did the day they met. The next two only shared one drama over a decade ago, and they still call each other by the names of the characters they played. Unlike the last pair, Gong Yoo and Lee Dong-wook have only been friends for about 10 years. They met while filming Goblin in 2016, the very drama that introduced countless people to K-dramas in the first place. 10 years isn't especially a long time. The surprising part is how quickly they started acting like lifelong friends. Why? Because they've hardly stopped turning up in each other's lives since. In 2019, Lee Dong-wook launched his own talk show, and the very first guest he invited was Gong Yoo. The reason goes back years. Gong Yoo had once joked that if Lee Dong-wook ever became a talk show host, he'd be his first guest. He'd forgotten all about saying it, and Lee Dong-wook hadn't. When Gong Yoo brought it up on the show, laughing that he'd only been joking, Lee Dong-wook looked at him and asked, "It was a joke?" I didn't know. A decade later, they're still using the names they gave each other on set. For them, Goblin never really ended. They also spend a lot of time exposing each other's habits in public, the way only close friends can. Gong Yoo once revealed that Lee Dong-wook sends every text message twice, repeating himself almost word for word. Lee Dong-wook got his revenge by telling everyone that Gong Yoo burst into tears the moment the director called action during Goblin. Gong Yoo didn't even deny it. All he could say was, "I feel sad. Stop talking about it." Of course, Lee Dong-wook didn't. The rest of their friendship is years of showing up for each other, commercials together, baseball games together, and this year, they, alongside their leading ladies, reunited for Guardian, the lonely and great God 10th anniversary, returning to Gangneung to revisit the places where Goblin was filmed. They recreated iconic scenes and shared behind-the-scenes stories, and somehow slipped back into the same easy chemistry that made people fall in love with them 10 years earlier. Neither Gong Yoo nor Lee Dong-wook is known for sharing much about their private lives. They rarely give confessional interviews, rarely post personal updates, and generally keep themselves out of the spotlight. Maybe that's why fans love seeing them together so much. Every public appearance feels less like a performance and more like a rare glimpse into a friendship they're usually content to keep to themselves. For two actors who guard their private lives so carefully, they've never seemed particularly interested in hiding this friendship. Lee Dong-wook is the one exception Gong-yoo has ever made, and 10 years on, it's still the friendship fans get to see the most. One of the women closest to them has known her best friend for even longer. She says she might never get married, and she blames that friend for it. When IU and Yoo In-na first met, becoming best friends wasn't exactly the expected outcome. There was an 11-year age gap between them. In Korea, that's big enough that you'd normally stay in a senior-junior relationship for life. A 27-year-old actress and a teenage singer aren't supposed to become inseparable. They met in 2010 on an SBS variety show called Heroes. Yoo In-na's description of it sounds faintly ridiculous until you see how the friendship turned out. IU was in high school. They had 11 years between them and so much in common that they recognized at once, she said, that they had the same soul. Then she added that when she asked IU about it later, IU's answer was that she'd liked her because she was pretty. Not long after they met, Yoo In-na hit the part of a career nobody talks about. She has spoken about it openly since. It wasn't a slow patch between projects, it was the kind of slump that makes you question everything. Whether you'd chosen the wrong life, whether any of it was going to work. Years later, she said the person who got her through it was IU. Not that IU comforted her, that gaining a friend like her during that stretch made the whole struggle feel worth it. 16 years on, they have arranged their actual lives around each other. They live in the same building. IU has explained the arrangement, and it's more specific than people assume. Yoo In-na lives directly above her. They meet up constantly, and IU is usually the one who goes up. They could both afford to live anywhere in Seoul, and they like being around each other so much that they chose a floor apart. And IU gave a reason for it that isn't about convenience at all. They both live alone, she said, and their parents don't worry about them because they know they have each other. What they do up there is nothing. IU has said they don't really do things together when they meet. They mostly just do their own things in the same room. She once compared it to keeping each other like pets. One Valentine's Day. They made friendship rings together, and IU posted a photo of it captioned with their nickname, IU In-na, because both their names end in the same sound. They've been to Europe together. IU wrote her a song, and when IU won Album of the Year at the Melon Music Awards, she used her acceptance speech to thank a person she pointed out was not family by blood, her #1 fan, her best friend, and her muse. And everyone immediately understood that it was Yoo In-na. And in 16 years, by Yoo In-na's account, they have never had a row. Not because they're careful, but because of a system neither of them agreed to out loud. If something upsets one of them, nobody raises it. They both go away, work out on their own that the other was hurt, and turn up a few days later looking, in her words, like sinners. Asked what IU actually means to her, Yoo In-na didn't reach for anything clever. She's become her life itself, she said. She'd never thought about IU not being there, and when she tried to, all she could think was how much she'd miss her. Which is presumably why, when marriage came up on a variety show, she laughed that she might never manage it and blamed IU. She was joking, probably, but not many people become such a constant in your life that you can joke they're the reason you're still single. That's how close these two became. The next 5 were cast as best friends, decided to make it real, and then went off and formed a band that topped the charts. Jo Jung-suk, Yoo Yoon-suk, Jung Kyung-ho, Kim Dae-myung, Jun Mi-do. In Hospital Playlist, they play 5 doctors who've been friends for 20 years, rehearsing with their band, eating together, complaining about work. It looked like the perfect friendship on screen. The easiest way to make that believable turned out to be becoming friends off screen too. When filming began, none of them were close. By the time it ended, they were living the friendship they'd spent 3 years pretending to have. And one of them almost wasn't there at all. Jun Mi-do had spent years becoming one of the biggest names in Korean musical theater, but she was still unknown to television audiences. She wasn't the obvious choice to lead a major TVN drama. Jo Jung-suk and Yoo Yoon-suk disagreed. Both actors recommended her to director Shin Won-ho before casting was finalized. So at their first script reading, Jun Mi-do thanked Yoo Yoon-suk for recommending her. He immediately replied that Jo Jung-suk had done the same thing, before adding the simplest explanation possible, because she's that good. When Jo Jung-suk arrived a little later, one of the very first things he did was tell her he'd seen her on stage and understood exactly why she'd been cast. They didn't just make the friendship believable, they made the band real too. None of them could properly play their instruments when filming began, so they learned. Instead of pretending on camera, they spent months rehearsing until they could perform live. Jeon Mi-do learned bass, with Jo Jung-suk helping her along the way. Before long, they weren't just playing a fictional band, they became one. They called themselves Mi-do and Fala Sol, a name built from her nickname and the solfege scale. The songs they recorded climbed the Korean charts. After the first season, the five played a live YouTube concert to thank the audience. Most of them looked nervous. Jo Jung-suk enjoyed himself so much, the others had to stop him promising a second season on camera. 3 years and 2 seasons later, the friendship had become every bit as real as the one they played on screen. Kim Dae-myung later said the experience remains one of the 10 greatest memories of his life, and they still keep finding reasons to get back together. Last year, 4 years after their previous release, all five reunited to record the theme for the spin-off. Then they sat down with director Shin Won-ho for a YouTube reunion and started talking about doing the whole thing again. The next friendship started on a fashion runway, and it's really just one eye candy after the other. Picture 5 teenagers, all over 6 feet tall, sitting backstage at the same fashion shows and in the same audition waiting rooms in Seoul, with no idea whether any of them would make it. Kim Woo-bin, Kim Young-kwang, Lee Soo-hyuk, Sung-joon, Hong Jong-hyun. None of them planned to become actors. They were models first. They walked the same runways, waited for the same auditions, and crossed paths so often that they naturally got to know one another. In 2011, a KBS drama special called White Christmas cast all 5 at once. 8 episodes, a boarding school, a murder mystery, and 5 models still working out how to act. The director later explained that the roles requiring the strongest acting went to experienced actors. The parts he thought didn't need much experience were handed to newcomers. Those newcomers were Kim Woo-bin and Sung-joon. Lee Soo-hyuk later said White Christmas was where the friendship really began. They had known each other from the modeling world, but spending months together on that set turned acquaintances into lifelong friends. Fans gave them a nickname, the Model Avengers, and the 5 thought it was funny enough to keep using. Instead of competing against one another for the same roles, they kept finding ways to work together. 3 of them reunited in a vampire sitcom. Kim Woo-bin took a cameo in a film starring the other 2. Lee Soo-hyuk and Hong Jong-hyun turned up in the same music video. The jobs kept changing, the company never did. They also turn up at each other's fan meetings, not movie premieres where cameras are everywhere. Fan meetings where the only person benefiting is the friend standing on stage. Lee Soo-hyuk once described the group member by member. Kim Young-kwang and Hong Jong-hyun, he said, become like little kids whenever they're together. Sung-joon is the one most like him, quiet, rebellious, and happy, just looking through photographs. Then he got to Kim Woo-bin. Even around close friends, he said, Kim Woo-bin is so honest and well-behaved that spending time with him makes the rest of them feel like bad people. Asked why it lasted, Lee Soo-hyuk gave a practical answer. They came up together, they wanted the same things, and the work was spread evenly enough that nobody had to resent anybody. The next group also includes one of the biggest stars in the world. Inside his own friend group, he's the one who gets picked on the most. This next group makes absolutely no sense on paper. Park Soo-joon, Park Hyung-sik, Choi Woo-sik, BTS's V, and the musician Peak Boy. A leading man, another leading man, an actor from an Academy Award-winning film, one of the biggest pop stars on the planet, and a rapper. They became one of Korean entertainment's closest friend groups. They named themselves after a question. Wooga is short for a Korean phrase that means, roughly, are we family? Their story starts years earlier, when Park Soo-joon and Peak Boy became friends in high school, before either of them had careers to speak of. It was just the 2 of them at first. 4 years earlier than that, in 2012, Park Soo-joon met Choi Woo-sik while filming Shut Up Family. Choi Woo-sik later joked that Park Soo-joon could barely make eye contact with him at first, but by the end of filming, he felt like he'd practically been raised by him. 4 years later came Hwarang. Park Soo-joon, Park Hyung-sik, and V spent months filming together, and another friendship was born. Most people would have left it there. Park Soo-joon did something simpler. Instead of keeping 4 separate friendships alive, he invited everyone into the same circle. His childhood friend, his sitcom co-star, and the 2 men he just finished a drama with. That decision created Wooga. In 2019, the group went on vacation together. Park Hyung-sik couldn't make it because he was serving in the military. So V edited him into the group photo. The Photoshop was terrible. Hyung-sik was floating in midair. Wrong scale, smiling at nothing. V posted it anyway. To everyone else, it was just a bad edit. To the 5 of them, it meant nobody got left behind. 3 years later, they filmed In the Soup, Friendcation. 4 days together, 4 episodes, and almost no real premise beyond letting 5 friends spend time together. And it was not complicated. Just cooking, playing games, talking around a campfire, and reminiscing about how they first met. The series became one of Disney Plus Korea's most watched shows, proving that people weren't tuning in for a complicated format. They simply wanted to watch the 5 of them be themselves. The following year, Park Seo-joon, Choi Woo-shik, and V traveled to Mexico to film Ginny's Kitchen, where they spent weeks serving Korean street food to real customers. Watching the 3 tease each other through long shifts made it feel less like a variety show and more like another chapter in the same friendship. Around the same time, while Choi Woo-shik was filming Our Beloved Summer, V showed up on set on his own birthday just to visit him. Later, he even recorded Christmas Tree, one of the drama's best-known OSTs. At some point, the work or shared schedule stopped being the reason they saw each other. The friendship became reason enough. Maybe that's why Park Hyung-sik once described the group as his only refuge, the place where he goes to heal. The next brotherhood is even bigger. 9 actors, 1 private group, and we only know who's in it because one of them read out the entire membership on television. 9 of the most photographed men in Korea have one place they can go where nobody expects anything from them. It isn't a private restaurant or an exclusive members club. It's Jo In-sung's house. Bae Sung-woo, Cha Tae-hyun, Jo In-sung, Song Joong-ki, Lee Kwang-soo, Kim Ki-bang, Im Joo-hwan, Kim Woo-bin, and EXO's D.O. For years, Jo In-sung's house has been the group's unofficial headquarters. It's where they eat, catch up, and disappear from the public for a while. The group didn't all come together at once. Song Joong-ki and Lee Kwang-soo got close on Running Man. Lee Kwang-soo met Jo In-sung on a commercial, then properly on It's Okay, That's Love, which is also where both of them met D.O. For a group that values privacy, they are very public about showing up for one another. They send food trucks to each other's filming locations. They attend premieres. They celebrate each other's milestones. When D.O.'s film premiered, 2 of them walked the red carpet while 2 more quietly appeared at the after-party. Then, in 2016, 3 of them flew to Japan, all because they went to watch Kyung-soo perform with EXO. Kim Woo-bin explained it as though it were the most ordinary thing in the world. They were traveling anyway, the dates matched Kyung-soo's concert, so they went. Schedules are hard to line up, he said, so whoever is free turns up. Eventually, someone realized audiences enjoyed watching them spend time together almost as much as watching them act. So they started making variety shows together. Jo In-sung and Cha Tae-hyun ran a rural grocery store in Unexpected Business for 2 seasons, with Kim Woo-bin, Lee Kwang-soo, and Im Joo-hwan dropping by to help. Later, Kim Woo-bin, D.O., and Lee Kwang-soo got their own farming variety show, GBRB, Reap What You Sow, while Jo In-sung and Cha Tae-hyun appeared as guests. That series even spawned its own spin-off, Eat What You Reap. The format hardly matters. The location changed, the jobs changed, but the reason people watched never did. It was always the same group of friends, teasing each other, arguing over chores, and making even the simplest moments feel entertaining. Years later, Jo In-sung's house is still where everyone eventually ends up. Every friendship on this list so far began at work. The next 2 began long before fame and very nearly ended in the same car. Most of the friendships here began at work. A drama set, a runway, a university classroom. Lee Min-ho and Jung Il-woo became friends long before either of them had a career. They attended neighboring schools in Seoul and met through mutual friends. Jung Il-woo has since admitted he'd already heard of Lee Min-ho before they were introduced. The boy from the school next door, he said, already had a reputation for being unusually good-looking. Then, in 2006, the 2 20-year-olds were driving to Gangwon Province when a drunk driver crossed the center line and crashed into them head-on. Everyone in the other car died. Lee Min-ho broke his thigh and his ankle and tore cartilage. Jung Il-woo's injuries were bad enough that scans found a brain aneurysm, and he lost part of his memory. He was in hospital about 4 months. Lee Min-ho was there close to a year. Years later, Lee Min-ho described that time without flinching. He had just become an adult, full of plans for the future. Then suddenly everything stopped. All he could do was lie in a hospital bed and think. During that time, Jung Il-woo kept visiting him whenever his own recovery allowed. Then Jung Il-woo recovered first. He returned to work and quickly became a household name through high kick, while Lee Min-ho was still learning how to walk properly again. When Lee Min-ho looked back on that period 18 years later during U Quiz on the Block, he admitted something most people probably wouldn't. He wanted to be happy for his friend, and he couldn't quite manage it. He said he became impatient. He wanted his own career to begin too. He even wondered aloud whether he had ever truly congratulated Jung Il-woo 100%. He said he hated himself for feeling that way. Of course, history turned out very differently. Within a few years, Boys Over Flowers would make Lee Min-ho one of the biggest stars in Asia. Looking back, he had nothing to regret, which is probably why he felt comfortable admitting feelings that most people would rather keep to themselves. Jung Il-woo, meanwhile, remembered that same period very differently. He never talked about competition at all. When he spoke about Lee Min-ho years later, he simply called him his closest friend. And they are complete opposites. When they were younger, he could never understand why Lee Min-ho thought the way he did. They argued because neither wanted to see things from the other's perspective. That changed with age. By their 30s, they had learned something more valuable than agreement. They learned respect. Sometimes, Jung Il-woo said, they simply accepted things they didn't personally like because the other person did. They became closer because of their differences, not despite them. The other thing they share is that neither of them really drinks, so when they meet now, 20 years after a crash that nearly killed them both, they go and get coffee. Those two met at school. This next friend group met in a university lecture room, all chasing exactly the same dream. Now here's a friendship that started somewhere far less glamorous. Not on a drama set, not on a runway. Just a classroom where 8 teenagers sat hoping for the exact same dream, with no way of knowing that every single one of them would actually make it. Kim Go-eun, An Yoon-jin, Park So-dam, Lee Yu-young, Lee Sang-yi, Kim Sung-chul, Cha Soo-hwan, Lee Hui-jong. Today, every one of them is still working as an actor. They all entered the acting department at the Korea National University of Arts in the same year. In Korea, that class eventually earned a nickname of its own, the legendary class of 2010. Not because they were famous then, but because so many of them became famous later. Kim Go-eun and An Eun-jin, born just 2 months apart in 1991, have now been friends for nearly 2 decades. And despite everything they've achieved, they still sound exactly like acting students. Kim Go-eun once described what happens whenever the group gets together. There's no planning. Someone messages the group, everyone shows up, they talk about whatever they're filming, and before long, they're confessing all the worries they would never admit anywhere else. Whether they're good enough, whether they're improving, or whether they should quit altogether. 8 actors who had already achieved the dream they once shared, still turning to the same classmates whenever self-doubt crept in. Kim Go-eun has said those gatherings remind her that they're all carrying the same worries, no matter where they are in their careers. For a few hours, they stop being award-winning actors and go back to being students trying to figure everything out together. They still show up for each other now. When Kim Sung-chul got picked for a music project, Kim Go-eun turned up in his comments to tell him it was amazing. An Yoon-jin went to see Lee Sang-yi's musical and posted the proof afterwards. Lee Sang-yi took a role in Kim Go-eun's film Love in the Big City, and she thanked him publicly and promised to pay it back. An Yoon-jin has sent coffee trucks to Kim Go-eun's filming sets, complete with inside jokes only old classmates would understand, and Kim Go-eun has never missed a chance to show everyone who sent them. And when they're not supporting each other's work, they're simply spending time together. They're still taking elevator mirror selfies, still meeting by the Han River, still sneaking out for late-night meals whenever their schedules allow. This June, Kim Go-eun posted photos from another quiet night out with An Yoon-jin, captioning them simply, "Love you." Fans weren't surprised they were together. They were surprised that, nearly 20 years later, they still looked exactly like the classmates they used to be. Those are only the moments we get to see. The real friendship is probably made up of 1,000 ordinary moments the rest of us will never know about. Those 8 started in the same classroom. The last 7 didn't start anywhere at all. They found each other anyway. Here's a friendship that probably shouldn't have happened. Sun Ye-jin, Gong Hyo-jin, Ji-won, Lee Min-jung, Oh Yoon-ah, Lee Jung-hyun, Song Yoon-ah. 7 actresses who entered the industry at roughly the same time in the early 2000s. They were each other's biggest competition. There were only so many leading roles to go around. Every role one of them landed was, in theory, a role the others didn't. That is how the industry is built, and it is very good at making people keep one another at arm's length. Instead, they became the Cinderella 7, and 20 years on, they're still one of the closest circles in the industry. Their careers never moved at the same speed. There were years when one actress was everywhere while another struggled to find her next project. None of it seems to have mattered. They're still celebrating each other's birthdays, still showing up at each other's weddings, and still cheering for one another whenever somebody has a big year. Lee Min-jung even revealed on YouQuiz on the Block that they have an actual cheer for each other's successes before performing it on television. Sun Ye-jin once revealed what they actually do whenever they get together. They cook, they talk, and they play board games. And then everyone heads home because none of them can stay awake past midnight anymore. Which is where the name comes from. Not from the fairy tale, and not from anything glamorous. 7 of the most famous women in Korean television call themselves the Cinderella 7 because none of them can stay out past 12. For a group filled with award-winning actresses, it's a wonderfully ordinary reason for a nickname. They've spent more than 2 decades celebrating birthdays together. At one of them, Gong Hyo-jin posted a photo of the group and wished Sun Ye-jin a body and heart as healthy as they were that day. For years, Gong Hyo-jin was the only unmarried member of the group. In March 2022, she attended Sun Ye-jin and Hyunbin's wedding and caught the bridal bouquet. 7 months later, she married Kevin Oh in New York. The last member of the Cinderella 7 had finally got married. One by one, they reached milestones that could easily have pulled them in different directions. New careers, new families, different lives. Somehow, every milestone became another reason to gather instead of another reason to grow apart. The industry gave them every reason to compete. They spent the next 20 years giving each other reasons to celebrate instead. For all the talk about how isolating fame is in Korea, the surveillance, the exposure, the impossibility of a private life, the people inside it seem to have solved it the same way everybody else does. They found a handful of people who knew them before, and they held on. So tell me which friendship surprised you the most, and tell me who we left off, because I know there are groups I've missed. I read every single one, and if you want more on what these stars are actually like when the cameras are off, click the video on your screen.